Good morning, Bradley. How are you?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. How
It's
are you?
nice to see you. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks
Um,
for having me.
of course, of course. All right. Well, I will let you take it from here.
Cool. Well, I tried really hard to create something new and unique for this event that hasn't been created before. So excited to share some information. We're kind of going to have two parts to this. One is more of a clinical piece, and then another one is a business piece. I've been working at InBody for a decade now, helping many clinics implement our tools and try to kind of look between the lines and think about how it's being applied and share some new insights. But for those of you who are here, better measurements lead to better decisions lead to better outcomes. So, with better measurements, we can get more accurate diagnoses, treatment decisions, and we can measure patient outcomes across the lifetime of their journey. And modern clinics are going beyond the scale. With the increase in GLP-1 adoption, peptides, hormone therapies becoming more mainstreamed, personalized medicine becoming a standard of care, uh, it's really important that we continue to evolve the way that we're measuring this too. So, traditional scales are just showing us uh, weight, but that's not really looking deeper into what's actually happening alongside of what's going on in the body. So we might miss certain things that are important for us to see along the way, and we might not have proof that we need that things are changing. A lot of times, small increment changes are what keeps patients motivated. They might not see the change on the weight in their weight on the scale, but there's actually change that's happening internally. And this can really help with a business as maybe a patient might think they're plateauing, or we might be able to retain patients longer in our programs. Um, with GLP-1s, and we talk about uh, body composition specifically, people might be losing muscle mass or wasting their muscle. And we'll dive into more specifically about what's happening around that. But that can cause us to misinterpret success over time. And really thinking about somebody's metabolic health is important as we expand this conversation. To think about what a modern clinic is doing, they're thinking beyond traditional weight, and they're really including many different types of metrics of body composition, cardiovascular load, neuromuscular function, cell health, metabolic rate, visceral fat, inflammation markers. These are all things that can help us understand where a patient's at objectively, and then continue to customize and design a program. And I'm going to dive into this section about different aspects of what we measure at InBody: muscle, fat, fluid, cell health, strength, blood pressure. We do it through a lens of our ecosystem of health assessment tools. So we have body composition analyzers, that's the one in the middle, blood pressure monitors to the left of that, height stadiometers, grip strength dynamometers, and these are all integrated through Bluetooth, and they all print out on the same result sheet. Our competitive advantage in the marketplace is we don't make any assumptions based on things like your age or your gender or your activity level. So the data that we're reporting is raw data that doesn't get skewed. So that's why a lot of people trust us. Mayo Clinic recently did a validation for us at 98.6% compared to ADEXA. So that's pretty cool. And we have tens of thousands of devices across the country being used. When we think about muscle, fat, fluid, cell health, and strength, we can see that through the lens of a result sheet like this that prints out. And I'm not going to dive too much into like the specifics of the result sheet itself, but more talk generally about things like muscle. As you probably know, it's our metabolic engine. It's super important. It drives our metabolism, controls our insulin sensitivity, predicts our longevity, our frailty, our aging, and it's super popular in GLP-1 programs, hormone replacements across healthcare. People want to see this data because it's really important. Uh, the other part of that And also, if you don't have enough muscle, that's a health risk indication. So that's a great opportunity for us as clinicians to be able to help people with that. Another health risk indicator would be something called visceral fat. So this is fat that's sticking to our heart, our lungs, our organs. Uh, I asked somebody recently if they knew what visceral fat was, and he reached down and he pinched his belly and he said, "Is it this?" So I think a lot of people don't fully understand what visceral fat is. So if you have an in-body or you're measuring visceral fat in a way, having a visual cue to show somebody this, if you did a search on Google for visceral fat on your heart, uh, you can see a picture of a healthy heart and an unhealthy heart that's kind of caked in visceral fat. So showing people uh, visually or viscerally what actually this is, and then expressing to them the importance of um, why we measure it, and then the impact on somebody's overall health related to inflammation, insulin resistance, diabetes, cardiovascular risk, a lot of things like that. So if we're tracking this over time and we're showing uh, measurable change, we're actually showing how we can uh, help reduce their risk over time and live longer, healthier lives too. We also show intra and extracellular water. I think this is going to become really important in the future and more mainstream. Early on we were thinking about just weight over height, which is like a BMI. Then people start thinking about uh, of that, how much is lean mass or fat mass. And today in mainstream, we hear a lot of people talking about the importance of muscle first or, protein forward or things like this. I think the next evolution of this we're going to see more people talking about the fluid balance. So looking at intracellular water, which is inside your bones and muscles, and extracellular water, which is outside in your blood and your skin and your lymphatic system. And over time, if we're monitoring the shifts of this fluid alongside different therapies, then that gives us a lot of indications about somebody's metabolic efficiency and fluctuations that are happening in weight. And when we think about how that specifically relates to something like a GLP-1, GLP-1 acts like insulin in our bloodstream, and it's going to bind with the glucose. And typically, our glycogen or sugar in our bloodstream is going to bind with three molecules of water, and normally that would go into our cells. If that glycogen is not getting back into the cells, that means also the water is not getting into the cells. So when people talk about muscle wasting or loss of muscle mass, it's actually happening in the fluid shift. So uh, muscle mass is made up of the dry lean mass, and then there's water inside of that and water outside of that. So we want to monitor those shifts in the water primarily to see how that affects the amount of muscle mass that somebody has. And then obviously we can help people maintain appropriate hydration, make sure they're getting enough protein or food in their diet. Resistance training can help with that, but monitoring the body composition regularly is super important. Our lean mass within our body is made of 70 to 75% water, and shifts in that are really important to monitor over time. Another aspect of this is the actual cell health or the integrity of the cells. So, uh, the cellular structure that is there, we can monitor how strong or how healthy those are. So, if there's typically more water inside the cells are going to be stronger. If we have greater edema outside the cells, they're going to be weaker. But we can monitor this alongside of different therapies as well. Peptides, hormones tend to put more water back in the cells in a lot of cases, and monitoring the water and the cell health over time gives us a great indication of somebody's recovery rate, their inflammation, mitochondrial function, nutrition, and we can use this clinically over patient's journey to be able to help them achieve greater outcomes. We actually just came up with a pretty cool stoplight model where when we're looking at changes over time in somebody's result sheet, if our phase angle is increasing, if our intracellular water is increasing, then that means somebody's performing well, they're recovering well, and uh, it's a good indication of change over time. Where, on the other hand, if we have an increase in extracellular water, phase angle is decreasing, then that might mean that we would do something different, or we would adjust somebody's plan, or they might need to recover a little bit longer over time. So there's ways we can look at combinations of these different outputs over time to be able to gain some different insights. Grip strength is another popular uh, vital sign that people are starting to think more and more about. If you did a search on Med, you probably find over 7,000 different studies that look at grip strength in relationship to different health conditions, cardiovascular, functional fall risk, sarcopenia, different outcomes cognitively, brain health. Um, so measuring grip strength can help us look at the quality of the muscle through the lens of the body composition result sheet. We can look at the quantity of somebody's muscle, but that doesn't always directly correlate to the quality of that. So we include this as a measurement in our ecosystem, and something that we can continue across somebody's lifetime. Some people think about it like a uh, measurement of longevity. So we can start to develop this profile over time to see where somebody's risk might be related to this. And then in a clinical setting, if we're thinking holistically about somebody's health and we want to encourage strength training or fitness programs, this is a great way to open up conversations. All these different outputs are great doorways into conversations that you might want to have with your clients. Somebody told me once, he said, uh, I don't I don't have to tell my patient that they don't have enough muscle or they're obese. The InBody helps me do that. And we can do the same thing with grip strength, but then having a way to continue to support them is also important around those, or having kind of a workflow to support somebody developing strength. Maybe it's even partnerships within your community if you're not specifically helping people with strength. But I've even heard of clinicians who have installed like a pull-up bar in their clinic, or they have kettlebells where they specifically measure grip strength, and then they have somebody do a dead hang, or they have them walk with the kettlebells. So they're reinforcing the growth that somebody can have in relationship to these as well. And then to round out the profile of cardiometabolic data that we have, we report also on our blood pressure monitor a profile of data, which standard we'd see systolic, diastolic, pulse, but we also show a mean arterial pressure, pulse pressure, and a rate of pulse product. So to simplify these, I'm going to think about them like in your car, you have a miles per gallon, or RPMs, like rotations per minute. So we can see these types of signs for what's happening inside the body that are relating to strain on the arteries, oxygen demand, stress that's happening over time, um, and then be able to show that change and uh, bridge it together with the body composition data, the grip strength, so we get a whole profile of that alongside of different modalities of therapy that we might be providing for somebody. So this is something unique that I put together. Pretty excited to share it. Haven't shared it before, so you're the first group to actually get a look at it. When we see people looking at this body composition data, uh, they're thinking about it in relationship to a lot of different products, services, lab testing, and things like that. So what I'm going to show here is 4 different tiers, and I'm going to get you thinking in the direction of relating the body composition data to these different aspects. So um, I'm not a clinician, but what I wanted to give you is the framework to think about how these things relate in a simple term, and then encourage you to go back and think about it related to exactly how you're working in your practice to try to help somebody um, clinically, or think about this as a system that you could implement within your practice as well. And I think a lot of practices get the system backwards. So they might start with tier four down here is more advanced signaling hormones, peptides, GLP-1. Somebody might come in saying, I want this, but there's a foundation of nutrients and other things we can look at alongside of it before we get to things like that, where we can build foundations and overall health and nutrition to support people. So tier one is lab testing. So in this left column here, these are what the in-body findings might be. So we're looking at high body fat or visceral fat. What that means is somebody might have metabolic dysfunction, fat storage, and then key lab testing markers that we might want to look at or compare them to over time or think about them like proxies might be fasting insulin, A1C, ApoB, CRP, things like that. Skeletal muscle mass uh, might relate to testosterone, other vitamins. So if you think about all of the different maybe lab testing outputs that you're looking at, how can you relate them to body composition outputs that are there to help create this relationship among them? So you can look at them. Maybe a body composition test would allow you to see a relationship with a blood marker that could be improving over time as well. And then tier two is more foundational nutrients. So we're thinking about that's in relation to protein, vitamins, minerals, fiber, things like that, where the in-body output, say for high extracellular water, total body water, is an indication of inflammation or fluid imbalance, where we might want to think about electrolytes, hydration, potassium over time, or cell health or phase angle is showing us our cell health and integrity. We might start to relate that to different vitamins and minerals as well over time. And then tier three, we're looking at more functional things like creatine, CoQ10, probiotics, prebiotics, where we're relating these outputs. So if you were to think in your practice, you could create a spreadsheet or something similar to this where you're thinking about all the different outputs that you're measuring and then relating it to the products or the services that you're offering to be able to continue to uh, help your patients along that journey to maybe we're upselling different products, cross-selling different products. So we're looking a little bit deeper based upon what we're seeing through the lens of in-body. And then we start to look at more advanced signaling, hormones, precision medicine. Same thing here with high body fat. We're thinking of GLP-1 therapies or low muscle mass. We're thinking of testosterone, phase angle, NAD or peptides, things like that. So we can start to see how these all relate specifically. And in the past, others have thought about this like a cheat sheet in terms of how they're going to interpret the results or discuss this with a patient, and then continue to look at what they're offering to be able to grow their practice or map out a customer's journey across a lifetime. You might think about how these tiers could relate to a 3, 4 month program with somebody and how you might layer these together. But in the end, we start to think about it like a loop or an operating system of we're taking a measurement, we're understanding how that relates to what it is that we're doing, intervening with somebody and showing them a path forward, optimizing that and with different protocols, and then repeating the system. So it's really a loop where we're testing, we're understanding, applying, and then repeating to see what kind of changes have happened over time. And data is important, but data with no option can be really just noise. So I think the importance here is relating these together. So weight gives us context, I think, but when we break that down and we start to show how these metrics can change over time, we can really relate them to different uh, outcomes that we're hoping to achieve. And I think that's the most important part that we can make clear recommendations, or we can accurately track this over time so we can make better decisions through the lens of the data. Better data doesn't just improve care, it transforms how clinics grow. So we're pivoting now and thinking more about business outcomes. I was in a room once where somebody asked a group of clinicians about how they think about uh, the flow of their business and whether they use a CRM or they're thinking about revenue per patient. And there was a remarkably low amount of practitioners who understood that. And I think the link here is that InBody is a tool that businesses use to engage, educate, and empower their patients. So the number of scans in a practice determines everything. If we're able to do more scans, whether they're patients that are coming in for consultations or we're going out into our community to engage people to do scans, or we're inviting more people in to do these scans, we get more opportunities to convert those people into programs, upsell, get more referrals, even if your patients are sending their friends in to get scans. Um, that leads to more revenue in the business. And through the lens of that, we don't necessarily have to be selling, but we can be solving. So if we're looking at uh, health risk markers and we have solutions that can help people, and we see these deviations from what is healthy or normal, then we have an opportunity to help solve problems for people or increase their outcomes. And this can become a repeatable system that you can do in business. So if we're getting more scans, we're getting more opportunities. The data leads to curiosity, it leads to questions, it leads to opportunities for us to educate, have conversations, and make invitations to people that can lead to greater outcomes in the practice. So, scan, we get insights, help somebody get going on a program, improve their outcomes, we can retain them longer. Um, this is where most clinics break. They collect data but don't act on it. So better data with this better business outcomes. We get more clarity into what the patient is, where the patient's at, and then we can build trust. I think that's probably one of the most important parts of what we're able to support people in providing is you're building trust as you're showing your expertise in this process, which leads to more people converting into your offers and your programs over time. So there's three layers to the way we could think about a return on an investment through the lens of this. We can have clinical return on investment where the patient is uh, getting better outcomes, and the sentiment of the patient, they might be getting better sleep, or they might have more energy. So clinically, we can think about it through the lens of this. Um, with the patient specifically, they might trust you more, or that your business is showing objective change over time, and there's a measurement to be able to show this, and they're complying more. We have some research studies that were done at like a cancer research center where the patients that were measuring their body composition were more willing to follow a program because they knew that they were coming in to measure their progress on their recovery against that. And then the other one is the business outcome. So we can retain people in programs longer, or if we think about uh, longevity or a lifetime of a customer, we might have more opportunities over time to continue to build relationships and conversations to grow our business, sell to different products or services. So the direct return on investment could come through a lens of maybe you're charging for scans, maybe it's built into your packages and you're converting more people in packages. Maybe you're upselling or cross-selling into different products or programs, or maybe you're getting more people coming in um, for follow-ups that maybe you scanned somebody and they didn't sign up for a program, but they want to come back and they want to do a follow-up scan, which gives you another opportunity to convert them in the future. And then there's a lot of indirect returns on investment. And I think in a medical clinic, the indirect return on investment far outweighs the direct return on investment that's happening. A lot of people think about this in the sense of, well, how am I going to make my money back on it? And they want to see a direct return on investment, a bottom line. I tested 100 people and I charged each one of them $50 for the test and I made this. But in the long run, if you're able to build these relationships and trust, then you're going to convert people into programs. You're going to maybe cross sell, upsell. You might get more referrals. You're differentiating yourself in your community, holding people in programs longer, providing better outcomes through the lens of it. And I think that that indirect return on investment is far greater. Um, so if we think about that, the sale or the assessment or conversion into a program is just the beginning of a process where we onboard somebody, we continue to engage them over time, we retain them longer, we expand what we have to offer them, and then they also go back out in the community and speak highly and well about your business, which continues to help that grow. When we think about this is more simple terms of thinking about like a sales funnel. So a suspect is somebody I suspect that could be a good customer for me. So if you're thinking about uh, your community, where can you find suspects that you could potentially invite to come do a scan, or you could take the assessment devices out into your community and uh, once you assess them or you build a conversation with them or they step into your funnel, per se, they become a prospect where you can start to add value, you can educate them, you can work towards converting them into a potential customer, um, and then converting them into sale. So thinking about how you could use this tool to work somebody through a process. And everybody might be in a different state along this journey, or some people could just in one moment fall all the way through it and you turn them into a customer immediately. But what's happening here from each one of those stages of this, we're bridging the gap and we're the conversations that are happening, uh, the conversion from somebody moving from a prospect to a potential customer to a customer happens inside their own mind when they understand uh, new data that and information that creates new awareness in their mind that helps them see that you could help them. And that belief shift happens internally and helps them move along toward a decision. So you can have, you know, in your pipeline, if you look at your pipeline now, I'd recommend if you have a body composition tool, then you invite people to come in and do this assessment. Or if you're taking it out into your community, you're starting these conversations, and then you can continue to educate and support them. And you can work them through a value ladder of sharing this awareness of where they're at, offering them an experience and education, and then through the process of enrolling them and then continuing to provide service, you can expand this and retain them longer. This is a principle that I learned uh, when I kind of simplify a lot of what's happening in healthcare. Uh, Behavior change and health coaching is what's happening outside of the modalities of care that we're providing. And somebody taught me this once. It's a principle, EMACK. So people come to a health coach for one of these five reasons if we kind of simplify it. And when I was health coaching people, I would ask them specifically, I'd say, which one of these do you think you need right now from me? Or how can I help you? Which one of these sounds like I'm going to probably do all of these for you anyways, but which one of these sounds like what you need from me right now? And what this enabled me to do is set a clear expectation of what this person was expecting. So the E stands for efficiency. So people have goals and they want to get to them probably faster. So what you might be able to provide for them is an efficient way to get to that outcome. Or M is for motivation. So we might need to create an emotional buy-in or a deeper understanding of what's driving somebody. And people might not actually know that. And you can help them understand that by reflecting and being a mirror to them and listening to them. And A is for accountability. So we can provide consistent check-ins. A lot of people, I talked to somebody yesterday that said, well, I know what I need to do, but he's not doing it. So would you need me to hold you accountable? And that might be enough for some people where you fill that gap for them and their discipline increases and they start to see success. Some people have trouble just committing. The C is for commitment. And um, they want somebody to help them commit and also hold them accountable, but taking that step to make a commitment. And then K is knowledge. And y'all have a lot of knowledge that you can share and just kind of depends on, where somebody's at and what they want. But this is a framework for you to think about how can you set a expectation or build a relationship with somebody that will help them along their journey specifically. Every clinic grows in the same way. So thinking through this lens, these are like levers that you could shift in your business. So higher volume of leads and appointments. If we're getting more scans, more appointments, then that's a way that we could potentially grow. From there, if we're getting faster conversions, better consultations, we're adding more value in that process, or we understand the process of how we're converting somebody, bigger packages and we're adding more value, so we're getting more revenue from somebody, and then we're retaining people longer or progressing them through a value ladder. So as you think about your business, think about these different levers and where you might have bottlenecks in your business or where might have more opportunities to increase the force within these different aspects and levers within your practice to help it grow. What you could track related to what we're talking about here, number of scans per week, a conversion rate from a scan to program, revenue per patient, and then retention rate, long-term relationships with these patients. And you can start to think uh, along these to figure out how do I how do I increase this or how do I improve it or what might be causing it to be struggling right now, and what shifts could I make to improve that over time? So, in the end, we think of InBody not just like a device, but an engine that makes everything else work. So, a clinical engine, a sales engine, a retention engine in your business, and getting that data helps us to make decisions, lead to better outcomes and greater revenue in the clinic. So the clinics that are winning right now aren't the ones that just have the best therapies, but they're the ones that have the best systems. And that's what we're able to support people and provide. So without the right systems, your patients might plateau, programs might weaken, price resistance might increase without enough value, and people might go other places where they are getting that value. So what feels like a patient problem might actually be a system problem in your business. Shift is already happening. So some clinics are still trying to compete on price. They might be losing patients who want data-driven outcomes. They might still be guessing or just looking at weight, but clinics that have made the shift are measuring patients every visit. They're building programs around objective data, and they're providing therapies that work, and they're showing that scan by scan, growing trust, referrals, retentions. The clinics leading the market right now didn't wait for the perfect conditions. They build systems, so the shift's already happening. The only question is, will you adopt it? We have an exclusive offer too here for anybody that might want to learn more about InBody and get going with that too. If you bundle together the body comp blood pressure, we'll give you the grip strength and the height stadiometers for free, and a bunch of other bonus items. And then I put together also a playbook here so you can uh, have a resource to think about these ideas that I shared here in your practice. So if you scan that QR code there, we can our team will get that out to you. and then I'll share it in the chat as well, so we have it there. And then I also started a podcast here where I've had a lot of conversations across GLP-1 therapies, hormones replacement. I've even spoken with cognitive behavioral therapists and just thinking through the lens of healthcare and tips, tricks, tools, resources beyond the scale, bringing it together in conversation. So if you like podcasts, then that could be a great place for you to listen.
All right. Thank you, Bradley.
Share all these resources in the chat there as well. So we have them there. My contact information is also there too. If you want to reach out anytime, I'm happy to support or encourage you along your journey.
Yes, and all of the links and contact information too is in everyone's playbooks. So you have it there as a resource as well. So we can jump into we have some Q&A here from people. So actually this first question I think is a great one. Do you have examples of potentially like two patients that are on GLP-1s, one that is doing an exercise regimen and one that is not?
Not specifically, no,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I guess more so, if not even examples, but like, I guess, typically see, right? If somebody is just solely on a GLP-1 versus doing an exercise program, because it's like it's such an important, I think, component, which is also why it's so important, right, to be tracking your body composition to make sure that like as they're losing the weight, they're maintaining all that bone density and muscle.
Yeah, well, I'd certainly agree. I think strength training is going to help us to uh, drive more water back in the cells, where a GLP-1 is probably going to pull it out. So we're creating the the counter effect to it, where we're maintaining that muscle mass and we're supporting our metabolic health. So I think if the person that asked this question has patients where they're seeing this body composition, then it would be advisable, I think, to do a test like that and see and look at the data and think about how that relates to it. Then you have some direct claims to be able to share that. But I think without a doubt, it's probably going to help people maintain their muscle mass, increase their metabolic efficiency, probably reduce their inflammation over time. So I'd certainly encourage people to strength train with it.
Yeah, for sure. And then what type of training do you offer when practices are bringing on an in-body into their clinics?
So we start out, we have our InBody Academy where that covers more like how to set it up, how to get it running, how to get tests, how to understand how to do the test and understand the result sheet through the lens of it. And then I'd say reach out to me specifically, and I'm happy to chat with you. I think our team is more set up to help support implementation of the tool. But I mean, organizations like yours, Katya, are helping too with systems and structures around that with conversations like this. And I'm happy to consult with people to help them uh,
Yeah.
think about it differently or share more resources that way too.
And I guess kind of following on the training, is there additional training on how to interpret the results that clinicians are getting back, or is there like resources they should reach out to or reference?
Yeah, well, our academy helps you understand the outputs that are there. And then I think the guide that I made here will be a great resource to think about it in relationship to what we might be providing in a clinic here. But I think over time, in terms of like a learning curve, you get the device, you understand how to read the language of the result sheet. Then it's a matter of looking at the changes over time that are happening and relating that to what might be happening. What modalities of therapy are we providing? What kind of supplements are they taking? Or, what are they doing between test and test? And would start to see these changes over time and understand that. And then I would say using it on yourself or your team as well is a great way to be able to uh, have that conversation, uh, lower intensity environment where you can continue to um, build the muscle of your awareness and understanding of it over time.
And then there's two questions about in a home scale. So one is, does InBody offer a scale that consumers can have at home? And then there's a kind of a secondary question from someone else that's related that she has an InBody 580 in her practice. And increasingly, patients are coming in saying that they already have body composition skills at home. So do you have recommendations on kind of how you're framing like the benefits of using an in-body versus some of these, there's a lot of at-home scales on the market that say that they, track body composition and is, one better than the other and or even like are there opportunities like how is it actually impacting like patient behavior, like is it better for them to kind of be weighing themselves and checking in on it every day at home or doing like fixed points on a device?
Mm, okay. Yeah, we do have personal home devices and they actually integrate with the professional devices. So if the person has a 580 and their patient has come in and they've tested on that 580, and then they have one of our personal home scales at home, all of that data, if that 580 is connected to the cloud database, all of that data from the professional device goes there. And then for the home scales, the patient would activate and start the test from inside the InBody app where their data from the professional 580 model and their home scale would go in there. And then in the patient's app, because they've tested on the 580, they can opt in to share their personal home data with the provider. So inside their Look in Body web portal, they can not only see what's happened in the clinic, but they can also see what's happened at home. The second part of that is, yeah, there's all kinds of devices out there. We see dozens of them come up every year. And um, from our perspective, what we're doing to get to the data is we're using multiple frequencies. So uh, we have two electrodes for each limb, and we're sending currents across the body, and then we're doing it multiple frequencies. So lower frequencies, 550 kilohertz, higher frequencies, 100, 250, 500, 1,000, 3,000 kilohertz on higher models too. We're getting different depths of tissue. So that allows us to measure the whole body and at different depth. And what that allowed us to do is eliminate the use of estimations based on things like your age or your gender or your activity level. For instance, another popular scale on the market these days that market well, when you actually look at how the device is working, they're sending 150 kilohertz frequency from the right hand to the right foot. So they're getting one impedance measurement at 50 kilohertz, and then they're using age and gender and activity level, sometimes ethnicity, to try to guess at what that person's body composition is. So they've got a set of average norms, and then they get this one measurement. So if you're closer to the average on your data, then you might be close. But then if you're an outlier in any way of like muscle, water, fat, then your data is going to get skewed closer to that average. And then over time, the changes that you're going to see from that uh, won't be uh, accurate to the actual changes. You might see shifts, but the shifts are going to be smaller because it's still skewing everything closer to that norm over time. So we use the same technology in our home scales that we do in our professional models. They just use different frequencies, so you don't see all the same data points that you get on the 580, but a good proxy to be able to show that change over time.
And does the home scale integrate with the InBody 270?
Yes, the home scale integrates with the app and the technology form that we have. So you would open up the app on your phone, connect it to Bluetooth to the home scale, and then you start the test, and then the results are reported inside the app. So it connects with any device in the ecosystem. It's just that the whatever device that you have If it's connected to the cloud software, then it can also report that data to the app as well, to the patient. And our unique identifier is the mobile phone number that we use.
And then on the report sheet, can you explain the difference between skeletal mass and lean mass?
Oh, that's a great question. I think lean body mass is bone, muscle, and water. So you have two components of your weight or your total body composition. You have fat mass and you have lean mass. So everything that's not fat mass would be your lean mass. So we simplify that and we say bone, muscle, water. So muscle is a part of the lean body mass. And if we think about it, uh, within that lean body mass, there's water and then there's dry lean mass. So dry lean mass is like your protein and your mineral content. So you have water that's inside the cells of your bones and muscles, and you have water that's outside the cells of your bones and muscles. So when we think about skeletal muscle mass, it's part dry lean mass and it's part water.
All right. Well,